Friends of Canada, friends in Canada. My name is Eric Walsh. I'm the Deputy Head of Mission here in Berlin at the Canadian Embassy. Let me begin by conveying the Ambassador's regrets that she was called away on short notice and could not be here in person to greet you. But she asked me to welcome you all to the Embassy on her behalf and to express our sincere delight that the Canada Meets Germany Alumni Forum has returned again this year for the third German-Canadian concourse. She also reminded me the first speaking slot after lunch, at least for those of you here in Berlin, can be a tricky one, so I should try to keep things moving. I'll certainly do my best on that front. Seriously, it is really tremendous to see so many people here today under our roof. As I've said to many of you before, we at the Embassy strive to situate ourselves as a venue where people and ideas can come together. And 25 years after the Berlin Wall came down, the Embassy proudly stands in what was once the no man's land between East and West Berlin. This area has now become the beating heart of the modern city, and next year we will be celebrating 10 years in this location. Over the past decade, this building has played host to countless gatherings of Canadians and Germans. Some examples of our regular events include the Berlinale Film Festival, the Forum at Canada House, the Marshall McLuhan Lectures, and many others. And today, to this select group of regular events, I can say we can proudly add the German-Canadian Concourse. The GCC, in fact, one could say is unique among these events in that it takes place simultaneously in 2 time zones on 2 continents. Thanks to our modern video conferencing technology, this event will be its own Canada-Germany connection, linking 2 of the most innovative parts of our respective countries, namely Berlin and Toronto. So, welcome to those of you at the Multiplicity Accelerator at the George Brown College Waterfront campus in Toronto. Good morning, Toronto. And I have to say, how about them first place Toronto Raptors?
Good morning.
So this year's GCC is also setting a new standard with the largest number of participants in the series thus far. And no doubt, this is due in large part to the topic that is both timely and exciting, transatlantic startup surge. Why do I say timely and exciting? Well, timely for a reason that has been in the news a little bit lately, the historic Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA. CETA is Canada's most ambitious trade initiative in our history. It will open new markets and generate significant benefits for Canadians and Europeans alike. And for entrepreneurs and others involved in startups, especially those already looking from Canada to Germany and vice versa, CETA will make it even easier to be successful. So now is really the perfect time to be getting ready to take advantage. And exciting, well, you all know that better than me. Startups on both sides of the Atlantic are generating, developing, and commercializing game-changing technologies and concepts. And this tradition of vibrant entrepreneurship is really a foundation of our economic success in both countries. Just look around you today. We have at this conference a broad spectrum of professionals and stakeholders from banks, venture capital companies, chambers of commerce, business development institutions, consultancies, incubators, accelerators, academia, and even government. Startups, with their focus on innovation, are of central importance as we work to strengthen ties between Canada and Germany. We already see that Germans are often involved in the creation of Canadian startups. The example of Shopify is one that we regularly mention, and Canadians in German startups as well. So I hope you will take advantage of what you will see and hear today and the contacts you will make to develop new connections between our 2 countries. Now, I must add a few kind words for the organizers. As in the past 2 years, this conference is only taking place due to the hard work of the Canada Meets Germany Alumni Forum. And the driving forces behind this year's GCC, Matthias Muck and Christina Arendt, have spent long hours, I should probably say long days and long weeks, putting together today's impressive program. Matthias, Christina, it is always our pleasure at the Embassy to support your efforts and to contribute where we can. And I am personally gratified to see how the series has grown and blossomed since you first presented the concept all those years ago. So may the GCC series continue to be successful well into the future. And in closing, let me thank all of you in Berlin or Toronto or following us on the live stream on the internet for joining us today. Both for myself and on behalf of the Ambassador, I wish you a most informative and productive day. Thank you very much. I'll turn over now to the Consul General of Germany in Toronto, Walter Stechel.
Well, I hope you hear me in Berlin when I send you a very warm welcome from cold Toronto. We have -8 degrees and a wind chill of -14, but the mood is very warm here in the George Brown campus on the lakeside. And we are very happy that modern technology allows us to join you across the Atlantic, across the time zones, and to symbolize in a way the potential for cooperation across the continents in the area of startups. I think Canada and Germany are both equally interested and in need of new startups, everybody involved in transforming ideas into viable enterprises and jobs. And being here in Canada, in Toronto, since September of last year, I'm very happy to experience the vibrant startup scene here in Canada, in Toronto. I have been to the MARS, the initially called Medical and Related Sciences Incubator. I have been happy to go to the Digital Media Zone at Ryerson University and talk to the young entrepreneurs who are transforming the ideas that they generate in their research at university into fledgling companies that eventually turn out to be maybe the next hot idea, the next BlackBerry, the next Google, or whatever it may be. We are all aware of the challenges along the way, and we know that not all of them are surviving, but they are the potential, they are the seeds for success, and that is why we are interested in supporting them and helping them to blossom. German-Canadian cooperation can be a major part in helping them blossom. And I was very happy that not only President Gauck, during his visit in Canada, visited Mars, but also recently Minister Peter Friedrich of Baden-Württemberg, who went to the Digital Media Zone. And from these visits, we got the impression that it is going to be extremely helpful for entrepreneurs in Canada as well as in Germany to meet, to cooperate, and to explore possibilities and opportunities in the respective other country. I think what we are experiencing today at the third German-Canadian concourse is exactly what we need to bridge the Atlantic and to bring actors in both countries together and help them to exchange experience, but also to exchange opportunities and make them and harness them for the progress of the companies, but also our economies, because our economies, Germany as well as Canada, depend on the spirit of entrepreneurs, and that is why this event is so extremely important and timely. I can only wish you from Toronto the best of success in today's conference, and more importantly, the continuation beyond the conference and the networking that it generates. I think here the participants in Toronto are looking forward to what you are providing in Berlin, And I'm sure that you are going to get a lot of ideas from the input here in Toronto. So let's have a wonderful morning, I should say, together across the Atlantic between Germany and Canada on this third German-Canadian concourse. Thank you very much and all the best.
Guten Morgen, Toronto. Good morning, Berlin. Vielen Dank, Herr Generalkonsul Stechel, für diese einführenden Worte und die bei -8 Grad besonders warm wirkenden Grüße aus Toronto. Thank you very much, Eric Walsh, for your very warm welcome in Berlin and for your friendly introduction. The German-Canadian Concourse convenes today for the third time at the Canadian Embassy. And I would like to follow Mr. Stechel's argument that he gave in this conference brochure. With the third edition of the GCC, the German-Canadian Concourse has become a traditional platform for transatlantic exchange on relevant topics for Canada and Germany. The idea for this event series was born 3 years ago and was inspired by the Canada Meets Germany exchange program. Early 2012, the board members of our association were sitting in an office somewhere upstairs here and presented our plans for a day-long event embracing the following elements: a transatlantic conference for discussion on a specific topic, a field trip to a partner organization for practical insight into the subject matter, and a reception following this conference for networking opportunities. That day, when we're sitting upstairs, was the day when the Embassy of Canada became the incubator for our conference startup program, the German-Canadian Concourse. With a significant investment in terms of funding, programmatic advice, technical and logistic support, and opening Canada House, for us, Eric Walsh and his team, David Ehinger, I should mention as well, enabled us to grow the concourse concept. Eric, we're very grateful to the Embassy for their entrepreneurial spirit, and we hope to provide you return on your investment by offering you or by having this full house here at this German-Canadian Concourse. And I should say, people who have been to the GCC in previous years, they might realize that there has been a change. When we had less participants joining, we were able to have a type of cabaret-style setting of the table, so this was more for networking opportunities, sitting close together. Now we have a regular conference setting of the chairs. And you can see it's not always good if you grow fast. You have to take disadvantages. So that is maybe the most obvious change of the program and an indication of the success of our program. The patronage for the program by Ambassador Marie Gervais-Vitricaire is strengthening our brand and raises awareness among potential new investors. We are hoping to establish a similar cooperation with a German institution in Canada to develop further the Canadian session of the concourse. And I'm very pleased in this respect to have you, General Consul Walter Stecher, at the Canadian session as a newcomer to the German-Canadian concourse. The GCC program strongly depends also on external distributions, on contributions. Without the support from our sponsors and in-kind donation from stakeholders, the program, the concourse, wouldn't have come that far. Sponsoring partnerships have played an important role, and they will continue even more to play an important role, a crucial part in the future development of the program. And having said this, and looking to the back of the conference room, It seems to me that we have identified a potential sponsor for the next German-Canadian Congress. I hope we can get the Deutsch-Kanadische Gesellschaft into the program next year as well. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It's a pleasure to thank for today's event the following sponsors. Osborne Clark is our main sponsor, the BMW Foundation Herbert Quandt for hosting the reception tonight, Subwise for organizing the field trip this morning, and Multiplicity, Accelerator, Cobalt, and Closehound for running the Toronto session. Ein ganz herzlich willkommen nach Canada. Good morning, Toronto, and thank you very much, Kosten, for organizing this at the Canadian side. Well, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, chers participants au Canada, sehr geehrte Gäste in Berlin, welcome to the 2014 German-Canadian Concourse on the topic Transatlantic Startup Search. Je vous souhaite la bienvenue de notre part à la conférence dans la série German-Canadian Concourse sur le sujet Poussée transatlantique pour des jeunes pousses, projet d'entreprise en Allemagne et au Canada. Nous sommes très contents de voir un tel intérêt dans cet événement sur ce sujet entrepreneur, autant à Toronto qu'à Berlin. Und nun freue ich mich, Ihnen unser Vorstandsmitglied im Canada Meets Germany Alumni Forum und die Programmkoordinatorin für den diesjährigen Konkurs vorzustellen. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Christina Arendt, our board member at Canada Meets Germany Alumni Forum and responsible for organizing today's event.
Thank you, Matthias, and welcome to the GCC 2014. As Matthias said, it's a startup itself, an event startup, our German-Canadian Concourse. And with this program, we want to reflect the interdisciplinarity of the network itself, of Canada Meets Germany, our alumni organization and the leadership program that we went through. And with the topics, we want to look into subjects of interest to both countries, both Germany and Canada. And while we looked into the German-Canadian cooperation in space last year, which is connected or linked to Matthias's profession, we took a different subject this year, which is startups and entrepreneurship. And this is actually connected to what I do. I work in Potsdam for the Business Development Bank for the state of Brandenburg, and we organize startup and entrepreneurship initiatives together with our partners for the region to support startups and entrepreneurship in the region. So, planning the GCC 2014, we also looked for a catchy title, as we did last year. So, while we went transatlantic through space last year, we would have almost ended up with the transatlantic startup upheaval this year. But as you know, it came differently. But looking into the subject, the world sees a huge hype of startups all over the place, though it's mostly the US that we look to with the startup scene. And we wanted to take a different angle and look from the German-Canadian perspective onto the startup scene and look into the ecosystems that actually support the startups. And the goal of today's GCC is actually to look into the systems of the two countries, see what we can learn from each other, and we hope that the GCC will be a platform for actual cooperation between the two countries in the sector of startups and entrepreneurship. So at this point, before we plunge into the program, let me introduce our moderator, Alexander Tam. He's a foundation manager, just came out of a sabbatical, as I've learned, and is now a freelancer in his field. And I must say the program brochure does tell you that Michael Knoll was supposed to be our moderator today. He had to leave to Frankfurt to attend an important meeting in Frankfurt, so Alexander jumped in, which we're very grateful for. And yes. And before I hand over to Alexander, let me say, let's start the German-Canadian, the Transatlantic Startup Surge. Enjoy.
All right. Yeah, thank you for this very nice introduction. My name is Alex. I'm quite happy to start sort of the search out of my sabbatical at the Canadian Embassy because this feels like home to me. Actually, Michael asked me, we know each other because we met 2005 at Canada Meets Germany meeting here in these halls. And I guess he thought I would be a good person to do that because I'm from Bavaria, and as the Germans might know, we are the country of Lederhosen and laptop. So it's in our genes since a long time to talk about startups and grabbing opportunities for new technologies. So, and if anything goes wrong, please blame it on Michael. Everything I work with came from him, so can't be on mine. This is also a networking event. And I guess some people here came here because they are alumni. Others are very much interested, as I could see from the guest list, into the topic of startups and their environment. And others may just be Canada fanatics. So to give you a chance to get to know each other, and you might do that in Toronto too, just turn to the person sitting behind you and tell him or her why you're here, Canada, startup, or just to spend a good afternoon. You have a minute. Go ahead. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Merci, danke. You have a coffee break soon again to continue your conversation. All right. Thank you. I'm going to continue now. We will have now the first part of this afternoon's presentations, which is the part of the concept of this concourse, to have in the morning a site visit and in the afternoon going in the more theoretical part of the issue talked about. I guess it's going to be very practical and a great interesting insights. So, and we start now with 4 presentations. Each presenter has 15 minutes to present. Then we have about 5 minutes for questions. I'm gonna take 3 questions for each presenter. And after that, we go into a coffee break. And afterwards, we come back for 2 panels. One on the so-called ecosystem for entrepreneurs, and unfortunately, the last panel will be on the topic I'm most familiar with, social entrepreneurs, but then I'm warmed up and then it will be great. Another housekeeping, you might have, of course, those with you. Please, I know especially for startups, it's hard to switch them off, at least put them on mute. And I know this is a networking event and we have a lot of knowledge sitting in this room and sitting over in Toronto, and we have little time in the plenum to talk. You have a lot of time in the coffee break, you have a lot of time this night at the conference. So, and as I told you, I'm from Bavaria, but I live in Hamburg, and there's a great TV show on Northern German TV. It's called Ina's Nacht. Actually, I would love to have that now because it's like an interview show in a pub. You can drink beer and talk. I don't have the beers here, but she has a kind of short question round where all the guests sitting in the pub can write questions on the Bierdeckel. We are not in a pub. I don't have Bierdeckel, but all of you find these pieces of paper on your seat or now beyond your seat. So whenever you have questions and you can't bring them up, note them on the Bierdeckel and give it to me in the coffee break, and I try to bring it in during the panel after the coffee break.